All right, so let's start this. Good morning. My name is Alberto Bonello, and I'm the owner of Influential Communications in Hartford, Connecticut. We've been around for over 20 years. And today we're going to tackle the topic that is in everybody's mind, which is AI and how to keep our data safe while we're using it. Also, we have a special guest, Dr. Georgia Powell for mental health, that's going to also give us a little bit of input about how to keep ourselves basically sane during these times of constant change, and not only on technology, but also mentally. The things that nonprofits, organizations, and everyone is going through, trying to keep up, and the stresses of thinking that this tool is about to replace us, which is what we've been sold. The story that we've been sold is something that we're going to tackle a little bit too in this thing. I thought that it would be important to bring a little bit of that mental health aspect to this. Also, let me introduce first my partner in crime, which is Rohan Sugdeo. He's the IT and Compliance Director for Influential Communications. He's the one that would tell us how to keep safe and how to keep our data safe, not only the one from the organization, but also the ones from our clients. Also, like I previously said, Dr. Jora Powell. She's the owner of Powell Health, Mental Health, and she's here to keep us sane for the time being. So let's not take any more, and we'll start this process. Dr. Powell, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And so it's still morning. Before we dive in into learning about how to make some of the efficiencies for our businesses, I recognize that folks may be from a diverse, not just nonprofit, um, from a diverse working sector. And so with Powell Mental Health being in mind, we will always like to start out by what that mindful moment looks like as we start our day, well before we dive into our work, well before we look at our emails, well before we answer our phone messages, well before we take on our meetings. What are some of the ways that we take that time out to ensure that we are the sharpest, we are focused, and we are ready for our day, right? Those first decisions does make a difference in how we're able to lean in successfully throughout our day. And so I'd like to take this moment to share some mindful tips, and I will also give this uh, um, uh, exercise, really just a 3 to 5 minute exercise over to Alberto, and he will share it with you as we do some of the wrap up and send that out your way. So as we dive in, let's talk about, you know, what we do when we start our day, right? I describe all of those things already as to what not to do before we take care of ourselves, right? We can't pour into an empty cup, right? We can't pour from an empty cup. So how do we fill ourselves up every single morning, right? I want you to forget about that meeting that you have coming up at noon or at 11:30 or later on today. I want you to take your seat. I want you to remove your hands from your mouse. I want you to really take some time for you in order to digest what we're going to be able to partake in this training and learning about ways that we can successfully implement AI in a HIPAA compliant in ways where we may not know. It's important for us to really take care of ourselves, position correctly. And so, with that being said, as you take your seat, remove your cell phone from in front of you. If it's there, turn it on airplane mode. I want you to sit back, take your hands off the keyboard. We won't need it just now, right? I want you to not even look at your screen. I want you to either close your eyes or look out the window if you're sitting next to the window and take a moment to be mindful as to what we're here to do, right? And so when we're not distracted by other means, it also helps us to really focus in on what is expected from me and what I can contribute to my day. Take a few moments, take a look at that. How will I start to think about successfully integrating AI tools, AI capabilities, how I will use this platform in the way that meets my needs, meets my organizational needs, right? Think about that. And so as you're thinking about that, think about the ways that you have used tools like this inappropriately. We want you to clear out all of those myths, and I want you to get ready for what we're going to impart to you, right? Mindfulness is not just about something that you do once a week, it's something that you do daily as you start your day off. Later on in our session, we're going to go into that a little bit more, and not just how being mindful or practicing mindfulness helps us to be able to get more than we think we're capable of done throughout that day. But as you lean in, I want you to lean in now, looking at what are the tools, what are some of the strategies, what are some of the resources that you need. And I want you to bring that mindset into that space as we lean off with our training with Alberto Bonello of Influential Communications. I'm going to ask him to take the floor in about 10 seconds. So I'm going to just have a moment of quiet. And then after those 10 seconds, I want him to lean in with explaining why we're here today and how we're getting ready to transform the work that we do on a day-to-day basis.
Well, Dr. Georgia
Okay.
Powell, thank you very much for that. I think it's very important to keep these trainings balanced. I think that's a feature that a lot of trainings, even when we do it in our own organizations, I've tried to bring this into our culture because it's important to be mindful of what the people around you are going through at the same time, that you're not the only one stressing out running an organization. You have to realize everyone in there is feeling your stress, and they're also feeling theirs. So let's start with Rohan Suteo. One of the first things that I've seen on the internet is that people are just trying to sell you the goodies of what prompt to do, how to get into AI, but they miss the most important part of it, which is keeping yourself safe, your organization safe, and the data of your clients safe. So here's Rohan Sudale, our Director of IT and Compliance, and he will walk us through safety first. Then we get into the fun part of AI. Go ahead, Rohan.
Oh yeah, can you move it to the privacy slide?
Mhm.
Good morning, everyone. So this morning, we had our nice grounding from Dr. Powell. Thank you. Now some of the more serious stuff that you'd see why we had the grounding first, right? So basically, as Alberto mentioned, there's a lot of, and depending on where you go on the internet, there is the doom and gloom of AI is going to take over your job and cause the economy to crash. And then you have all the other people saying how wonderful it is. And we're missing the middle ground. We still, this is a tool we're using if we are using it. And no one, or I should say, very few people mention the implications of using the tool when it comes to the data that you're using day to day. So at this point, what we want to touch on first before we go in is um, any of your client data, community information, um, donor information, all of those things. We still treat AI as any other tool that's based in the internet, or tool in general. We have to be mindful of that. If you're following HIPAA guidelines, you have to follow that as well. Can you bump to the next slide, Alberto? I think we're sorry. There you go. Okay. So at this point, the same rules still applies for HIPAA and PHI as you would if you are in that space for any other tool, right? So the good thing is you don't necessarily have to relearn a whole new methodology of what data is trusted and what's not. If it's considered HIPAA, personal information, or even just company confidential, meaning it's client information or donor information, and those things you kind of want to keep within your organization's walls, then we don't put it in AI, especially the models that are Alberto's going to talk about. There's some differences between the type of models you use, right? So again, just to go over one big thing with HIPAA, especially the reason why there's a BAA required is because that agreement says how they're going to use the data, how it's treated, etc. Um, Most of the AI models out there now, unless you have a specific plan, are not HIPAA compliant. So we have to be aware of that. Um, so we're going to go through real quick some do's and don'ts with AI before Alberto gets into it. Um, Basically, the first thing is as I mentioned, the AI tools privacy policy. Um, any free version of ChatGPT, of Claude, of even Copilot, uh, you shouldn't put any private information in there. Those use the data to train the models, so those privacy policies, there's almost none. So know the privacy policies. There are paid models that you can use. The HIPAA ones are specific. You usually have to talk to the companies about that and get the BAAs from them. The next thing is your organization. What are the guidelines and policies that you have in place? If you don't have an AI usage policy in place, that's something you should consider so that people understand what they should and shouldn't be doing. This is a new technology. Um, a lot of people are experimenting, and it's evolving almost daily at this point. And we do have some information to help you if you don't have an AI use policy afterwards that can kind of guide you along that. Um, Back to using the enterprise grade models, I guess I jumped ahead of myself there. Specific models allow you to enter certain data in there that keeps it from training the models. And as we go through, we'll talk about that model training a bit more. And if you're unsure of any of this, the best thing to do is ask your technology compliance or leadership what the AI use policies are. And if there isn't any, you probably want to get approval to use it, whether on your own time or on office computers, depending on what type of information you're putting in there. So we'll go through real quick the don't section now. Um, any passwords, social security numbers, health records, any names that may be attached to anything HIPAA, so a name with a condition or anything that's considered HIPAA, we don't want to put into any AI prompts. Um, Again, the user consumer versions of the tools, we want to avoid those unless it is just a general query. And this is a big one that we'll talk about a bit more. AI output is not always accurate. There's something called hallucinations where it will kind of make stuff up. So we always have to double check. Um, and to follow up on that, double check before you send anything out to clients because, especially when it comes to certain facts and statistics, they may not be correct. So you need to verify before you use anything or send it out to clients. Um, and if you're unsure, again, just follow up with your IT or compliance or leadership, someone that can kind of give you some guidelines within your organization to make sure you don't overstep the boundaries. Because what we're finding is people are anxious to use a tool, they start using it, and then there's that gray area of what you should and shouldn't be doing. So um, these are good guidelines to follow. And Alberto will have some more information to send to you after the fact. So at this point, I mentioned hallucinations, and it sounds kind of crazy, but AI, the models that we have now, Anthropic, which is Claude, ChatGPT, which is a popular one, if your organization that has Copilot and a lot of the others, They all do something called hallucination. And essentially, what it is the AI only has so much context of data. And at some point, it decides, I don't have said data. I'm just going to make it up. And it will fabricate information. This is this can be problematic if you don't review or query it and ask it for its sources of references. So that's a big thing that can go wrong. Alberto and I have been testing this for some time, and we have seen it numerous times. So, again, just as you are working with AI, verify, double check any information that's out there to make sure that it's not making things up. The other thing is it's a short memory. So you can start an AI session, start going through, adding documents, and iterating through your thoughts. What it tends to do is that first section of the conversation, it'll just say, we're not going to worry about that anymore. And it'll just kind of forget. And you don't know which sections it may have forgotten or decided that it is irrelevant. And as you start going through, you'll find that it starts getting off the rails a little bit, right? So there are ways to kind of work through that Alberta's going to go over as well to kind of help deal with some of the short memory issues. As I mentioned, fake resources, it will make things up. So you kind of have to ask it, hey, that sounds great. Where'd you get that from? And I've had instances where it says, well, I just made it up. If you'd like, I can go get some actual resources. And then the other thing is, it's called artificial intelligence. There's no intelligence really behind it. If you kind of dig into how it works on the back end, it's just making guesses based on what you've inputted and says, this kind of looks like this matches this, we're going to put this together. There's a lot of times it does it really well, and there's times it doesn't. So just keep that in mind. It's not really intelligent. It's just making an educated guess based on, I even say educated, a guess based on what you've inputted. So yeah, basically, again, we check and verify everything, ensure the data that you're inputting doesn't include any actual names, if you're for HIPAA, any medical conditions, social security numbers, passwords, any of that sensitive information that you wouldn't actually, say in an elevator full of strangers. Alberto, do you have anything you want to add there?
I think this is great. I mean, the safety is like I always say, safety goes first because that's what, especially in the type of all of us are in the type of business, that should be covered. And that we have to realize that this is just data is basically a giant database that we're querying, and it's just has a way. It's a language model. The name says it. It will act like it's human, but it doesn't. It's just a language pattern that is imitating from humans. That's why every time you hear something like, "Oh, it's coming alive," it's doing that. It's not. It's just a pattern. It's reading your language pattern and answering back to you in a way that is friendly and that. So that myth is not going to happen. We're many years away from that. That would be the only thing I will have to ask. Well, thank you, Rohan, and he'll be back later on to who knew IT managers now how to learn law.
Well, now
Okay,
that I've
AI.
negated Dr. Powell's session, we can move on.
All right. So first things first. The reason why every time you first get introduced to AI and you go in and type in your prompt and you tell it, hey, write me an email for my sponsor or for someone that you're working with, and it gives you something that just sounds robotic, is because the AI doesn't really know who you are, what you do, how you do it. So basically, let's pretend if anybody's, we've been taught how to work with AI for many years. From the 50s on, every TV show you saw and everything kind of started humanizing AI or computers. And because the computer is based on a language model, we could talk to it exactly like we talk to each other. I mean, what you can do is basically in simple words, you have to introduce yourself to it. You have to feed it basically the way that you write, the work that you do, what is your position in the organization that you're working, or what is your purpose, and also how you want those results to be given. You could do it in any order you want, and I know you hear all these prompt formulas and all that, but it just basically comes out to those things that I just mentioned. I'll give you an example there. So basically, you go in and you prompt it. My name is Alberto Bonello. I am the director of communications. I work with, let's say, influential communications. Today, I need help with this. I need to make sure I send in an email to one of my major sponsors. This is my major sponsor's name. This is their website. You might want to go and look and find out some. Please keep the answer simple, or I want to ask my sponsor about this. And what the AI God does is that it knows your name, it knows what you're doing, and I need a letter in a letter form. So it goes out there and it creates all that. It researches your sponsor, it sees what is, because it knows your organization, it brings back that information, and it writes a letter that's specific to that need that you ask it to fulfill. So that's how you keep AI basically giving you exactly what you want. And you also don't allow it to go out there, because you give it where to go and where to get the things, to go out there and start grabbing information that might not be accurate. So you're actually telling them where the source of the information is coming from. That locks it up, that puts a guardrail so you don't have hallucinations and things when the AI just goes out and wanders around and brings data that might not be the one that you want. So let's move on to the next slide. Again, this is kind of what the thing that I work with, which is say who you are, state your mission or what you're going to do, name and you have to also realize that AI works better when you give it one task at a time and you build each task. So you do one thing first, then once you get that result, from that result, you go to the next task. Because remember, it had, like Rohan mentioned, it has a short attention span, it has a short memory. So that's what you need to keep in mind. In order to get more accurate things, you have to do one task at a time and build from the previous answer to that. Once in a while, it's recommended that you stop the chat or the thing that you're doing right away if it's more than 5 or 4 times that you ask them to do something, and start a new chat, because that refreshes the AI's memory basically, and you start working with the information that is accurate, that it still remembers. You also tell it what audience do you have. Like sometimes I tell it the neighborhood. If I had fed the information or the demographics about the neighborhoods that I'm working with, it will know. It will basically know what, if it's in English or if it's the Portuguese population, let's say in Hartford, it will actually know that, and it will basically tailor the answer back to you in that way, using those parameters that you're using. Also describe, very important, the output. You have to tell it if you need a PDF or a 3-paragraph, what level that you want it, 6th grade level, 5th grade level, the language level. So you basically describe it. The way that you work with AI is basically think of it as an intern. Someone that went to school, they know the language, they know the thing, but they don't have real world experience. So that all happened to all of us when we got out of school, and we thought we were going to take on the world because we knew every term that was out there, and all of a sudden reality hits us. So that's basically what AI is. It's just someone that knows everything, but they don't have real world experience. So, or the context of what you do. So that's why the answers you get, if you just prompt it without giving it all that instruction, it gets lost, or it gives you a generic answer. So that's the way we talk to it. Again, this is an example of how to prompt it, like, the role. You're a case manager writing to a client. You're going to have a meeting, which with the housing team, like it says here. So it gives you all. As long as you keep this level of back and forth with the AI, you'll get great answers back. Now, here, we're talking about the different models. Right now, Rohan and I have been working on this, and the best one that we found that actually covers all the bases, especially with privacy is Copilot. First of all, because Copilot is already part of your suite. So it's something that you don't have to go out there and pay already. You already have it. Organizations, most of them have it. Or if you have the paid version of Google, it also has some of the HIPAA compliance things. But remember, just because it reads HIPAA compliance, I think you could add something here, Rohan. That doesn't mean that you have to set it up yourself.
That's correct. We could probably, that's a whole other discussion, but when most of these tools, Google, Microsoft, even the AI tools, it's HIPAA compliant in the sense of on how they handle data. Um, you are required to do the settings all on your part to ensure. So Microsoft and Google, we'll talk about any of these other so Claude, Gemini, there are things on the back end that has to be configured to ensure that you are following HIPAA compliance. And then you actually should have some assessments done and documented, and then a follow-up process as well. That's all part of HIPAA. HIPAA is a lot of assessments and documentation ensuring that you've done the correct configuration. So just because something has HIPAA on it doesn't mean you're good to go and start putting data in. There are configurations and changes that you usually can reach out to the vendor to find out what's required as far as a general rule, and then you have to adapt that into your company's policies.
All right. So let's talk about the suites or the tools that most of us have on our desk, which is either Microsoft 365 or now that is called Microsoft Copilot and Google Workspace. Rohan could actually add to the recommendation of Copilot, but like we said, it already is something that most of us have on our desk already in our computer. We probably have one of the versions that is already basically is basically compatible with the privacy that we need to be, and the same with Google Workspace. The only reason, and you could add to this, Rohan, about Google Workspace is that because of the privacy issue they had so far, so many times, that we're not really pushing for it.
Yeah, so if you do a full comparison of the capabilities of Microsoft 365 versus Google Workspace, when you decide to actually configure it to use for HIPAA or any other compliance requirements, Workspace is lacking certain features and certain things that you don't have an option to. So now you'd have to find a workaround. 365, while can be cumbersome and complicated, those tools are there, and if your version doesn't have it, you usually can upgrade to get it. Um, on the back end of Microsoft, it allows you to do everything from data loss prevention. Even with Copilot, it can actually start monitoring Copilot to see what's there. The nice thing about Copilot is if your organization has policies in place about who can see what kind of data, who's in what groups, et cetera, all of that can be applied to Copilot to basically follow whatever HIPAA policies have been put in place already. So again, it's a tool, and we're trying to follow the same compliance guidelines and privacy guidelines that you're following with everything else.
All right, so now we're going to get to the fun part, which is actually getting to use AI and getting to know how to use it basically. And I'm going to use the example of Copilot, which is the one that most of us have it. As you can see on your screen, if you're at your place of work or at home on the computer, you can look at your Copilot. Just turn any, let's say Microsoft Word or any of the PowerPoint, let's say, turn it on and you'll see that the Copilot logo is on the right hand side up, top part of the screen. When you click on that, it opens a window. And what you do, this is the way that you prompt basically. When you're in Outlook, the functions that Copilot has in Outlook, they're very, very extensive. They're really amazing to work. You could tell it at the beginning of the day. You could basically type it in on the side and just tell it, hey, can you just go through my email from this day to this day and pull all the actionable items and put it on a list for me, or send it to my task, or put it as reminders. And what it does, it goes back into your email, grabs all those items, and puts them on the taskbar, or it puts them on your calendar, or it puts them whatever you need them to go. So that way it keeps reminding you about things like that. Other things that it can do while you're on writing an email, you could just prompt it to draft a reply. You tell it which while you're in the email, and it will do that for you. So it could write emails for you. It could organize things for you. It could look through your calendar. It could look. It does basically. It acts as an assistant for you. And all you have to do is prompt it, like you can see in some of the examples here. Very simple. Just summarize this email thread, what decisions need to be made, and and make sure you take the actionable items and throw them into my calendar. So basically, that's what it does. It basically does that for you. So because you're working with your own data and it's just looking at your data, you don't really have to worry that much about hallucinations, but you always have to check because even with your data, it could get confused. An example of what AI can do, let's say in Excel, the same thing. The AI will go, you will prompt it to basically tell them to either alphabetize your list of names. You could tell it to basically tell it in very simple words, hey, I need to just make another worksheet with just Newington or this location clients. So it will do that for you. So basically what you have to do is prompt it exactly what function you want it to do and what to do with that, with what the results that you want. So if you want a new the worksheet, if you want to open another merge information, if you were gonna make let's say name tags of a group of people, you basically tell them, oh, could you make it, send it as a mail merge or a name tag merge to either Canva and all that. I mean, we're going to have a webinar coming along that we're actually going to get into and work on each of these applications. There's going to be one for Canva. There's going to be one for Microsoft Word. So that right now is just an introduction to these things on how to talk to your AI and make it work a little bit better than what you have right now. Because it already has your context, it has your information. In Word, it works the same way. You basically tell it, let's say where you were doing grant writing and you're looking at the application. So you basically feed it the application, you drop in your RFP, you drop in some examples of your previous grants that were approved or your best grant work, and you basically tell it, find any information from this that basically answers the questions of this RFP, and the AI will go in there, find the questions, and you could actually even tell it, hey, it's 300 words or it's 400 words. You have to do that. It will actually do it exactly like they want to, like they're requiring it. So that's the thing that you need to get used to it. Just make sure you interact with AI like it's an assistant, and you have to tell it all the time exactly what you want, how many words you want, how long does it have to be, the language level. You're basically directing it to do your work. Once you do this several times, the AI starts getting to know you and it keeps that in memory. And you'll see that the more you feed it your information, the less you have to give it instructions because it starts getting to know you. Well, it's not knowing you. It's just that it has the data about you and it starts working the way that you work. And that's what a lot of these other trainings, they just try to give you a prompt and get you to do something, but it doesn't allow, they don't really teach you to basically go in there and train the AI yourself to start working like you and get results that it will be written or the same way that you work, or you could write them. Let me see. Things in Teams, again, any function that you need to do with any of the applications, it could be Gmail, it could be Google Docs, it could be anything. You just have to go in there and basically tell the AI exactly what you want, the results that you want back, the things that you want back in simple words. And every time that you want to basically write and sound like it's good to feed it a little bit of if you have some sample letters from before, you just add them to the chat, and you basically are telling them how to answer that. So you're training it. You have to act like the people that actually created this AI. You have to train it to basically start acting like you and writing like you, so that way it becomes more useful. As you can see, even Gmail has the same functions as PowerPoint and Outlook. So all of these, actually, I am going to have a website that I'm going to send in you a link at the end of the training, and we could actually go through that, and it will show you step by step how to go into your AI, into your Copilot system, and you'll be able to copy and paste the prompts, try it out, and I will actually send you a prompt that is going to walk the AI. It's going to go back and forth with you, and it will self-train on the way that you write, the way that you speak, and also the way that you answer things and work. So by the time you answer this questionnaire, that the AI is going to go with you back and forth, and it's going to ask you questions until it completely knows the way that you express yourself, the way that you write, the way that the way that you use punctuation, your catchphrases, everything. Once it has all that information, you will see the improvement. It will be 1,000% the improvement on the way that you get answers. So now, Rohan, could we go back a little bit to the safety part of the?
Yeah, so and we should probably pull up those links and send them, but Microsoft and Google do have in their privacy policies for so for Google it'd be Gemini and for Microsoft Copilot, how and where your data is used. So in Copilot specifically, and that's the one that I do more work in Claude, um, if you think of Copilot in Microsoft, the one in Word is going to be slightly different than the one in Excel, slightly different than the one in PowerPoint, because they're tailored for that particular tool. Now, the the Copilot version in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, basically any of the Microsoft tools, including Teams, those follow your company guidelines. They're going to use your company information. They do not train the model. That's what Microsoft says. However, if you go to the chat, that is, let's say, in your browser in Bing, or if you open up office.com and you go to that chat there, usually there's a little tab up top. It'll say web or work. You have to look for that because generally anything typed in there is going to actually go to the Bing version of AI of Copilot. So now that's out in the public. So that goes back to the acceptable policies and then actually just training. If we're going to use Copilot, for example, it would be that. Now, for Google, it's a lot less that are gated off. So in Google and Google Docs, in Google, so basically, and Google Sheets, those things are. But there's more of Google that isn't that versus Microsoft. So um, just pay attention to where you're using it. And that's kind of the big thing. And I think that's where people are going to get tripped up on as well. Initially is, where am I working at? Pay attention because that can be the difference between keeping everything in-house and safe versus putting information out that's training a model. And when we talk about training the model, the issue that you would have with that, so expand that a bit more. Let's say you did put some EPHI or PII or just in general confidential information into the consumer version of Claude, for example. The problem with that is that now gets into the database. And let's say a month from now, somebody does a search that may be related to that information or said person, that information may come up. And now you don't want that out there, right? So that's why we kind of have to pay attention, and that's one of the big risks. Um, the other thing I would say, as Alberto was talking about training the AI, Google and Microsoft have the capabilities, if set up correctly, You can segregate information by departments, teams, or the whole company. And let's say you have a team that writes grants, for example, you can have all your grants in a SharePoint directory, or in Google, it would be in a Google, I guess Google's, is it Google Drive? Um,
Mhm.
Designed for that team. And as you're using this tool, it can reference back all of that documentation, all of the information you've used over the years to help put that information together. So, and that I believe is one of the bigger strengths here. I've talked about the bad, but the strengths is it can pull from an incredible pool of information that you've curated and help you put work together. So there's the safety aspects of it, but knowing where and how you're working, um, can definitely give you an advantage into getting things done faster and more efficiently.
Thank you. So, talking about what Rohan just said, one of the things that I've always tried to do is making sure that people learn that, this is not, it's just a tool. It's not something that is going to replace you. It's not something that is going to take over your job. It's basically going to make you more efficient. And that's only if you learn how to use it well. I mean, and the correct way. And this is why this webinar is not full of just prompts, because prompts just basically do functions, little things here and there. But what happens is that since this AI is moving at this speed, it changes every day. So the prompt that might work 3 days ago might not work anymore or not be as good as before because of the change. But if you have trained your AI with all the information that your work needs and the way that you want your outputs to be given by the put out by the AI, that's when it becomes useful. That's when you start seeing the real thing that the benefit of having AI, because it's basically like having an executive assistant that has access to every single piece of data that you have and basically could pull it for you at a second's notice and write you something. If a funder, let's say, called you on the phone, hey, I need the numbers from the fundraiser, and you were halfway through them, you could just go in there and feed them the ticket sales, feed them the fees that you charge, and it will give you that short letter in a second. But it's only when you train it to work with you and like you. One of the things that you could try right now if you're on the computer is try this 15-minute morning routine, which basically you come in. The first time you have to set it up, it will take you about 10 to 15 minutes. It depends on how many things you do in the morning. But this one is very simple. You just ask it to summarize the emails, the unread emails, or summarize the things from the day before, to look at your to-do list, which things are still open, to catch up with your teams, if that's what your team uses it. And also, if you have any meetings, the prepare for a meetings function, which is once you open Copilot and you see it there, is amazing. It basically goes and looks at the history between everything that you have interacted with that person, and it sets up the meeting notes for you. So that's what you do. You could also tell it to basically, oh, the meeting is going to be about this. Is we're meeting with such and such organization, a funder. It will actually answer the questions or pull the data that you need from previous conversations. And like Rohan said, the great thing about using your Copilot suite or the Office 365 is that now every single thing that lives on your Google, on your, what is it, OneDrive,
SharePoint,
actually
SharePoint and OneDrive.
SharePoint and OneDrive basically is a data set for the AI. It could pull all the information from there. And that's why it's important that when you roll this out, you have basically a policy, because remember, not everyone should have access, or your people that work with you, to the data in your heart and your drive. So that's why this is so important to have these policies and permissions in place, like Rohan will talk about, because that's when things you get into trouble. Because when you have some people, everyone in the organization that's able to access that data, that's when the security things happen. That's when someone by accident, an intern could go in there and delete things. So that's why you need to make sure that it's not only just to get used to this cool new tool, it's just that you have to prepare for it. Because now, as you probably heard in the news, this company, this with IT departments and everything, went in and told the AI, hey, can you delete this? And the AI couldn't figure out how to give them that result. And what the AI did was deleted every single file of their hard drive. It wiped their hard drive. And when they asked him, why did you do that? The AI said, well, I couldn't fix it. The only way I could fix it was deleting everything. So now you don't have that problem because you have no data. So, so,
Yeah,
so that even happens to
there
people
was
with,
there was also the instance of the company, I think it was a rideshare company or something, where AI went in and they were supposed to do an update, and it basically killed their whole customer list to clean up its work. So that whole company went down for days trying to do recoveries. So, and what Alberto's talking about there is not your typical, what we're calling the LLMs, right, where we're doing the chats. That's what's called
mhm.
agentic AI. So you have an agent going out and actually doing work, writing code. We're not touching that here today. That's a different,
Yeah.
yes, but it does have the capability to be wrong and do things that it shouldn't have.
Yeah. You have to realize that this AI was built to basically work with humans and give them anything that they ask. So that's why it hallucinates, because it basically kind of gets frustrated when it cannot find the answer, and it knows that basically that's their job. That's when it starts making up information and those hallucinations happen. So like I said, what's going to happen today is that we're going to go through everything, that how to keep you safe, the functions that AI could basically do in each of the apps. But also at the same time, you're going to get a link to a free website that I put up, and some worksheets that will give you all the information that Rohan gave you about the safety. You could start thinking with your own IT team to try to roll out a policy, because one thing you have to realize is that your team is using AI somehow, either at home or at work. Everybody's getting into it. One of the first thing in many of these trainings that we've done that comes out is when we tell our trainees that, hey, if you put it on the commercial version, probably that information is public knowledge right now. They go, oh, that's the first thing they say. Oh, I thought because I paid the $20, it was private. No, you have to make sure that is the version that it has those capabilities for you to keep your data private. So also, what's going to happen is that we're going to send you a cheat sheet with all the information that we gave you, so that way you could put it next to your computer or something. So if you have any questions, you could actually refer to it, and many other things that are coming your way besides that. One of the things that I also wanted to add to this was making sure that when you're working with AI, like if you made the mistake of sending some of the private information in this kit, we're going to send you the links to each of the most popular AIs where you could send a letter or you could fill out the form to get some of that data that you know already that you put out there taken down. A lot of these organizations or LLM company, large language model companies, they have a way that you could take that data down if you made that mistake. You usually have to fill out a form. It's going to take a long time to do it, but they will take it off the training. So that way, if that's something that happened, or you find out that someone of your staff has been doing that, you could go back and ask for your data to be taken down. It will take a long time, but eventually it will be down. And that way you could prevent someone in a few months going into the internet and actually being able to find that data that you put out there. Um, let's take a 2-minute break, and then we'll go into the Q&A questions and answers, and we'll go from there. That way we could answer some of your questions about exactly the type of work that you're doing and what we can help you with answer today.
we also have a Q&A. If you've got any questions, you're welcome to put
Mhm.
some questions in there and we can answer them
Yeah,
for
you could
you.
start putting your questions so we could start answering them. Dr. Powell, do you want to do your while we're answering questions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. How's everyone doing? I know that I've was on Facebook for a little bit, just checking out to see who's there, but there's a lot of information being given, a lot of information being given. It's not something that you learn overnight. It's something that you integrate very slowly, in looking at your past processes and protocols and how to effectively roll a lot of this, high touch technology, I'd like to call very safely back into your organization to be able to make it more efficient for you, your client, first of all, because again, we work for our clients and customers, and then making sure that overall, for the safety component that Rohan discussed, that's also being integrated at the same time. And so take a deep breath. Alberto, listen, you're dealing with one of the best, and I sincerely say that for the work that he's done throughout the state here, as well as other states that he has helped to ensure that folks are compliant in ways that they're able to work efficiently, smarter, but also being able to protect the privacies of their customers and those that they deal with. So take a deep breath. Get up if you have to get up, stretch, don't go too far, because we do have quite a bit coming up next. Um, so yeah, and this is where
Right.
I often go ahead. This is
Go
where I
ahead.
often say, even if you don't want to get up for a second. If you have a refrigerator in your office, if you have to look out the window, it does change the way that you're able to come back to your desk and focus, right? Um, Sometimes change of locations is research has confirmed that it does allow us to come back, even for that brief 2 minutes, to be able to do what you're able to do best. Self-care. All right, Alberto.
All right. So just a little bit of information. This entire presentation that you've been looking at, I did not touch the keyboard basically to create it. I created it all through voice to text using PowerPoint. And I basically walked the AI through the entire presentation by telling it what I wanted on each of the slides and what I needed to. Even the graphic was created by an AI. I gave it our mascot, Bite. And I told it, hey, I want a background that looks like our branding. It already knows our branding. So what you do is actually, if you have a brand book, or if you have something as simple as a document with the fonts that you use, the colors, your logo, you put it into your AI, and the AI keeps it in mind. So every time you tell it, hey, create a PDF for me because I need to send it to someone and brand it, it will know exactly how to look like. It will make it look like what you need it to look. So it looks like it comes from your organization. So, like I said, this whole presentation was created. Here's some of the prompts, basically the voice commands that I gave it. So basically, I had the agenda. It basically knew what the schedule was, the agenda was, and I told it, hey, remember that agenda we were working on for the last month? Okay, it's going to be a 2 hour webinar. Please create an agenda based on the 7 first slides that I created, the draft that I created. It's a 2 hour seminar. Add a break block into it accordingly to whatever the topic is, and it went in and it created the agenda for me. So that prompt basically created this this thing here. It did it. It took everything that we had written about it and it divided it into the blocks of time. So that's how you get AI to basically do things from a presentation all the way to a grant writing. I had a training session About 3 weeks ago, was it, Rohan, that we had a training session for one of the big organizations in Hartford. And we actually walked them through how to basically fill out an RFP. Basically, they would come in. We asked them to feed all their information, previous grants, so it would learn how the grant writer writes, the tone of voice, the language that they use, and then we fed the application, what the RFP was, what it was asking for, and he went in there and he read that it was each section was 300 words, 400 words, and it basically answered all the RFP. Not only did it do that, but it prompted back saying, "You're missing this. You need this. Maybe you need to ask a question about this because the RFP wasn't clear about it." So it even started correcting. It was asking, information about, hey, it's asking here one thing, but why is it doing something else here? So that's the way that you want AI to work, to actually know you. And that way it starts asking those questions and giving you the results you want. Anything you want to ask Rohan about that training?
Anything I want to add? Um,
Mhm.
no, it's so the as we've mentioned, the AI, the prospects of what we can do, it's changing daily. But one thing we found that is really good is as you, if especially for grant writing, if your organization has been doing it for some time and you have examples of all your grants and how where you found successes, right? You can start looking through that using if you're using Copilot, for example. Copilot can find the things, the tones, what helped make those grants successful, because you may just have someone that had a knack for it and they may or may not be there anymore, but now it can help you kind of pull that information out and say, here's the things that we found that are common in these grants. Would you like me to give you a example of what this is? So for nonprofits, that's something that general businesses don't necessarily have to do, which it has to hit a different audience. So um, I I I sit in the middle. I see the use case, but being so new, I also kind of am wary of what it can, what it will do unless you understand how to protect against those things.
Okay, so we're gonna go into a share now to an actual window where you see Copilot at work. Let me see. So we're gonna try with PowerPoint. So as you can see, working with AI, you could actually, the great thing about now, and this came in about a few weeks ago, you see your Copilot here. We're actually working on the presentation that we had. You see Copilot here. This is where it appears for you. When you press there, you will see the window come up. You also can bring now either ChatGPT or Claude to your Copilot. So you could use any of the LLMs. But remember, safety first. You need to make sure that it's something approved by your IT, that everything is in place. It's a paid version of it. You could add a little bit more about this, Rohan, to
Yeah,
make
and
sure.
if you're HIPAA compliant, not all paid versions are HIPAA compliant. Usually it's the enterprise version. And in my research about a month ago, and that might have changed, you usually have to reach out to either OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, or Claude to have a BAA. Microsoft, you should already have a BAA if you're using it. They provide those fairly easily. And then remember, the configuration of the back end as far as access to data still applies.
And one of the great things that I recommend for you when first starting AI is to use the voice function on AI, which basically you dictate to it, because what happens is that it does two things. It gives the AI your tone of voice, and it starts learning how you work and your train of thought. But also, it feeds how you express yourself and the type of vocabulary you use. So that way, it's doing two jobs. You're getting to give it more instruction, and at the same time, you're basically training it on the way you talk and the results you want. So I have an app actually that works on anywhere, and what it does is you just dictate it to it, and you tell it what you need. So you tell them, hello. Oh, wait a second.
It may not work because you're in the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, because I'm in the Zoom. So yeah, what happens is that you prompt it there. You can tell it like change. Oh, so now it's now it's listening. There you go. Yeah, and it didn't take into account the presentation. Change the backgrounds to solid orange on the entire presentation. Huh? So you see, it went in and changed all the backgrounds right away. So anything you want, like if you want the slide to, you basically go to the slide and tell it to change the tone of it. You could do that too. You could tell it, hey, change the entire presentation to fifth grade level, and it will do that for you. So
Or
that's one of the great things about this whole entire presentation. Like I said, was built basically using the AI and prompting it into being actually. So that's one of the things. The other thing is that this happens on every, let me stop the share here. This happens on every single application that you have in Copilot. The same thing happens in Google. The same thing happens in all the LLMs that you have. So right now I'm going to open it to questions, and please send your questions of what really you want to talk about and what concerns you have about AI. And you could ask anything about security or any other questions that you have about how to prompt AI. So it's open. Please give us your questions. Don't be shy. So what do we talk about then? Let's talk about
how
Rohan
about we
about the
talk
six.
about, yeah, how about we talk about some of the new risks we're seeing with AI from the aspect of how people are trying to get your data, which again goes back to why a lot of the policies that you're supposed to put in place as either just a normal organization like a nonprofit or one that has to follow HIPAA. Um, so there are some new attacks that are already utilizing AI. Most of these hackers and criminals, they are on the forefront of figuring out ways to get into organizations. Now, small or large health data, if you're handling any kind of health data, um, you're a target. Um, PHI and EPHI is sold, probably I believe it's still the number one that it gets the highest amount of dollars because people can then defraud insurance agencies, etc. Um, so one thing is you may get an email, for example, and it may have an attachment from someone that you may or may not know, and you click on that attachment, and what it might do is something called prompt injection. It will go to whatever AI you may have running and give it a prompt that you don't know it happened, and next thing you know, it's given information, whether it may be information on how to log into, let's say you save some information and it can log into your, um, it could be email, it could be your customer database, it could be any of that information. Um, Basically, it will put what's called a malicious prompt into your AI tool and then have the AI try to do certain things for you. If you're running some of the AI cowork desktop versions, it can then get more information from your desktop or even get into some of your SaaS applications, or that's the cloud applications. Um, the other one, which is kind of um, it's similar to the prompt injection, um, but it's basically targeted data extraction. It, this one's a bit different. Let's say someone did get access to your machine, but they don't have access or they don't know where your data is. Well, now they can start chatting with that AI system and say, "Hey, where's this data? I'm looking for this. I'm looking for this." Maybe they need a just a company um, who's all in the organization, the org chart, and you have an organization chart, and then who are the people that have access to financials, who are the people that have access to PHI, who are the people, who are the CEOs, who may have keys to the building. Um, all of those things can create risks. But in recent studies, I believe what they found was if someone has access to your systems, they'll hang out for 60 to 90 days before they do anything, just gathering information, looking through, trying to get access to things. 60 to 90 days is a long time for somebody to be, hanging out without you knowing, right? So there's these new types of things that are coming out that we also have to be aware of, which then goes back to your organization's just your general stance on how you set up um, your your company. Take AI out of it. The basic principles of setting up the how who accesses data, administrator rights, etc., and as well as even just physical securities. Who has access to systems that can stores those that data. So um, I think that's something else, and this is evolving just as fast as everything else. Every day there's something new that people are finding. If you pay attention to any of the news, you'll see that there is the news related to cybersecurity. It is a very, let's say it's been very lively as of the past 6 months with these new models coming out and the use cases that hackers have found.
All right, so let me share you about one of the functions that I've done with AI, and one of the things that you could see that once you start working with tools that we're going to give you at the end of the webinar, some of the things that actually AI eventually you'll be able to do. So let me share this.
And while Alberto look at that information, just to follow up on Rohan's comment, I was in Litchfield Hills at a school doing some training, mental health prevention training, and one of their questions, or several of their questions, is regarding AI and the safe way to incorporate AI in student notes, in reporting. And I know that in the mental health field or any provider field, you see a lot of efforts being placed where they're using AI to complete their clinical notes. And so, Rohan, I mean, that's a question that I say, well, not to include any type of PII information, HIPAA compliant information, but if they're detailing details about a student, about a patient, really, what are some of the caution or the protocols that they can take to ensure that, yes, there are others that are out there using it, even in, just the government sectors. We touched on it earlier, but, is it even safe to put details around our clients, patients, or that in AI if we know that it's not secure the way that it should be?
The short answer, no. What you can do, however, is let's not use it at all. Anything that's identifiable to that person. So name, um, age, gender, location, like specific location, and then the actual thing that's afflicting them. You put enough of those together, now you have a problem. So anything that's considered EPHI, PII, that you're not supposed to put to the public, that requires you to follow any guidelines with any other software, that applies to AI as well. AI is a bit different because you may be using it to help with, I don't want to say diagnosis, but hey, here's the conditions. What are the things have we seen? Maybe it can be a great tool to find if there's publications, et cetera, that may show this. So what you can do is, instead of saying, um, you know, John Smith in Hartford, Connecticut, has this issue, you can just say a, 35-year-old male, leave that broad and then just say
Right.
Central Connecticut. And this is the issue, because depending on what it is, location may or may not matter. I don't know. So you may, make it broad, make it
Hmm.
wide, so that anyone reading it doesn't have the ability to say, okay, I know who that is. And even the thing that's in the a problem, if it's something that is, and this would be the practitioner's judgment. If it's something that's common, you can probably be a bit more specific on what it is, as long as you've obscured the rest of the info. But let's say it's one of those things that 1 in a million have, which is out there. There's a small list of people, and you may want to guard that a bit more, right? Maybe just don't even put any information. Just look for general information, as you would a Google search at that point. Um, so that's general. You could almost say treat it as if you were doing a Google search in that instance for PHI, and in general, you should be okay. If you won't put it out on Google, then you don't put it in the general chats, unless you have one of the enterprise versions with signed BAAs. Treat it as it was a Google search. Obscure the information as much as possible and keep it somewhat general.
All right, thank you. So this is an example of what you can do with AI. This is what one of the things you're gonna get after our webinar, which is gonna let you basically experiment, start dipping your toes into AI and start getting it to see great results with it. So basically this was also created with AI completely. So we created this dashboard, and it's a self-running learning session. So basically, you learn at your own pace. It will go over everything that we went over on the seminar. It will quiz you. It will tell you if you did it wrong or if you did it right. And it will go from lesson to lesson with everything that we went over here at your own pace. It would also start with the introductory thing, prompt, which is the prompt that basically you fill out your name, your organization's name, and the AI will start prompting you and getting to know you. So that's what we wanted to do, to basically you get out of this webinar. This tool that starts basically working the way you do and kind of walking you through it. So that way, because sometimes what I think when you go to webinars is that they just show you how the prompt works, but then they don't give it to you or you're trying to figure it out. This one will actually, is a self-paced, basically workshop for you. Once we're done, and you could go through it at your own pace, copy and paste into your AI, and it will basically walk you through it has a system or the way that you work. Like there's a section about grant. So like Here, you could copy some things that will tell you, hey, you need to send a grant update. You could actually use some of these prompts. A meeting summary, community newsletter paragraph. So these are basically task-based prompts that actually is for the type of work that you do. It's not some prompt to make a pretty photo or make yourself look like Superman or something. It's a natural prompt that we can use. And I think that's one of the things we also need to emphasize here. This, as you well know, AI is taking a toll on the environment, on the planet, on people themselves, because we're all stressed out trying to catch up with this new thing. It's not like before that was something that changed, that was changing and it took a month or two. This thing, even for me that I'm on top of it, it changes every other day, sometimes twice a day. And it could change completely sometimes. So that's the
This
thing.
is
That's why,
this is the
go
third or
ahead.
fourth iteration of this since we started planning this because of the changes that have come out of just the
Yeah.
presentation. So it's changing fast. It's a lot
I
to
mean,
keep up with.
like what happened 3 days ago. We were using this super advanced AI, and all of a sudden they took it away. So we had to go back to the previous. But the previous doesn't work the same that it used to because they updated it a little bit more anymore. So we had to redo the entire presentation on the fly, basically, also. I mean, as I said, again, safety is the first thing. It gives you all the information you need. It will have links to the, if just in case if you made a mistake of putting information that wasn't supposed to be there, so you could actually go and get the information taken down. And it has an extensive prompt bank exactly for the type of work the organizations that we work with work. The first one is, of course, to introduce yourself and build your voice. So you basically fill this out and they actually add as many documents of the type of writing that you do. It could be the newsletter. It could be a grant. Just remember, if you're adding grant and it has financial information and all that, take that out because if you're not sure if you're doing that, make sure you're doing it safe, like Rohan said. It could tell you, it will also give you daily work things. You could just go to your Outlook, your any of the AIs that you're using, especially Microsoft, and just basically copy and paste this prompt, give it more instruction if you need to add a few things, and it will actually prep your meetings. It will summarize long documents. It will do a recap. I have mine doing recaps at the end of the day, so I know exactly what things I owe for a client the next day, what things didn't get done, what things got done, if something came in. It actually checks overnight to see if something comes in. So it starts working like a 24/7 assistant, always looking out for you and seeing what's going on. It actually also has things like for social media. There's also something that you could try, but you have to be course. Make sure you're careful. There's also going to be a workshop on how to de-identify information using actually something like Acrobat. It's already built in there, and it will show you how to do that. And it will, how do you call that tokenization, Rohan? What it does?
There's lots of things it does, but so for Acrobat, you can probably also. I haven't tried this in Word, but if you're some of this information may be in Word or Excel, which should fall under your BAA with Microsoft, you can also try this within there as well too. But I'm not sure where you're going, but tokenization is one of the things that it does. Yes.
Yeah, tokenization, what it is like I had this document that I had to, yeah, I was outside and I had to use a regular AI to do it. So I had all the data tokenized. So what it means is that it would just basically put a code instead of the name of the person, the situation, whatever it was, the personal information. And I could use the regular AI, get the result I wanted. And when I brought it back to my protected AI, it basically brought back the information into the to the from the results I did. So that's what it did for me.
Yeah, you
Is
can.
that
So for example, instead of saying, again, we'll use we'll use Jane Doe as a name. You could just use patient 77531 or whatever, something along those lines, or some random numbers that only you know what it is, right? So this is what we do with credit card information. When you purchase something, your credit card doesn't actually go across the wire. It's a generation tokenized version of that that's sent out. So it makes it hard to decrypt or decode.
So the other things that we're gonna include is a document that Rohan was talking about that will have everything that you need to start working on that policy and some information, the policy for AI,
Yeah,
rolling out AI.
so there's going to be a couple of things in there. The first thing is we touched a bit on, um, some of the new upcoming threats that 10 years ago, we just had to worry about running Norton antivirus on our computers so we didn't get a virus, right? Now it's not an antivirus anymore. It's called, anti-malware. There's all kinds of things that can happen. So we've heard some of the companies that have had issues with basically all their data getting encrypted, right? Ransomware. So that's one thing now. But now with AI, there's a couple other things that we've listed there, probably the top five that we need to be aware of. And then one of the things that what we realize in talking to multiple organizations is very few of them have a policy in place to guide uh, people on how to use it, right? Their coworkers or staff. So especially if you are following HIPAA guidelines, you're supposed to have a acceptable use policy for this tool and in general other tools as well. But this one is probably one of the ones you want to go through. So we basically have a full guideline of the things that you should add in there. And this is from an organization called SANS, which does a lot of the industry standard security that a lot of the other groups that define security standards are from. So Alberto used Alberto's tools to, well, we'll say this is one good thing I found AI is good for, to make it readable for a non-technical audience. I have the tendency to talk very technical, and I found that I can say, instead of, fifth grade level, this is for a non-technical audience, and it actually does a really good job of putting things into language that people can understand who aren't technical, right? So it breaks down how to put together an acceptable use policy for AI, which I would say every organization should have. And then on top of that, some training. If you haven't had AI training for the people within your organization, training on how to use it, what to do. We've touched on some of the things here, but there's training um, that you should have available for if you're considering AI, right? So we've got some of that information there as well.
Yes, this is another example. As you can see, using the magic, well, not the magic, all the information that I gave AI, it took that presentation that you saw on that website and it turned into a PDF for the people that can't have access. So it actually made this document. It went to my website, so what it looked like, and it actually converted it into this document with my branding and everything. So it's an amazing tool. This one also has a lot of different prompts that are always task based to the type of organizations we work with. And I can tell you some of the things that we can do with the way once you personalize AI, it could basically set up your reports this way. You could use, and like I always emphasize, AI will give you the rough draft, or it could organize your thoughts, but it won't write it for you because, like I said, the only one that knows how you do your work is you. You're the human in the equation, and AI is just a giant database. That's why you have to repeat yourself. It sounds human. Some people get confused with that because they see it like it answers very sure itself, and when it starts learning, the way that you actually speak, like Rohan can attest to this. Sometimes I send him an email in my in my AI voice, and he's like, "Oh." AI is doing this, isn't it? But it sounds just like me, actually. So that's the thing that you have to do. You have to make sure that that's not your final version when AI just hands it over to you. Remember, you have to put the human in there. You have to put it in the way that you work. You're the only one that could actually give that voice, and you don't want to lose that because, like I said, so when the community, let's say your community knows you, knows your voice, they will smell that AI generated text or something a mile away. So, like I said, use AI as your rough draft creator, as your spell checker, but don't use it to make the final piece of work that you're doing, because that will be something that you start losing the voice of your organization and yourself, and giving basically AI the power to do things. So that's one of the things that I want to emphasize. Make sure that you're always checking it. You're always, because I'm telling you, I've been working with it, and sometimes it will tell me, yeah, it's exactly this and that, and it gives me a reference, and I go and check it, and it doesn't exist. It's kind of scary because it will make up publications, it will make up dates, names, and it will put them there like even a footnote if it has to. So you just have to be careful of that. It's an amazing tool, but you have to learn how to use it and see what you basically. How would I put this? It's like AI is like going to river raft rapid thing. It's fun. It does something, but then you have to avoid the rocks, and the rocks are the hallucinations, the weird sometimes things that it gives you. Sometimes it will refuse to answer your question. It just has those moments, those hallucinations that they call, because it gets confused. Like Rohan said, it doesn't have a long term memory. There are ways that we're working right now that I have it that basically, and this is one of the fun things, like I have a way that basically I have a second brain, they call it. And I created this database that has all the work that I ever done for clients and things. And what it does is that every time I have a question, it goes in there and reads what I've done so far. And if I have any question about anything in the last 20 years that I've done, it will find it and give me an answer for it. Like say, oh yeah, well, you tried that campaign 5 years ago. This is what happened. So that's how you start. Once you get past this prompting, and you get more comfortable, you see that just by using your plain voice, you could go start basically building your own system of working with AI. And that's something that I see that a lot of the gurus on the internet, they just give you prompts and buy my program, but they don't actually tell you how to start really getting the best out of AI, which is training it the way you do your work, and getting it to start working like you, like it's an assistant. And that's great. I mean, you want to add anything else, Rohan, about that?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just another tool, and it's like Batman has a bat belt and he's got all of his tools there. This is another one, and there's a tool for each use, right? Now, there are some people that have relied on AI a lot, and what we're finding actually is you start looking at a lot of the content, and it's all starting to look the same because it's all AI. And that's kind of one of the things as we're discovering is once AI starts learning, like it goes out and says, let me see what's on the internet, and it starts looking a lot like everything else. So what I've been kind of stumbling into is some research. There's lots of research going on AI, the effects of what we're seeing. And one of the things what they found is, you know, teams that have went mostly on using AI without actually doing some of the work and getting together and discussing as we normally do, they pretty much have no new ideas because they're just relying on whatever AI says to do. This is kind of how they're going. So there's no creativity anymore, right? So that's one thing AI can't have. It knows what it knows. it's never going to come up with new ideas. It may be something new to you you didn't think about, but somebody else on the internet has already done that. Um, Dr. Powell mentioned in the use cases in schools. You know, do we ban kids from using it? I don't know. It's another tool. This is like Microsoft Word or I don't know, the calculator, right? We just need to understand it and make sure that the students understand the safety, the students understand, um, you know, how and where they should use it. But the one thing we don't want to do is just allow it to be, the use case. From what we're finding is if it's all they do, those critical thinking skills aren't built, right? So, you know, it's another tool. If we continue to use it, see it as a tool instead of it's going to, take over everything, which thus far, the robots still can't, drive the cars without crashing into things. The robot dog still runs into the walls, right? AI hallucinates, it makes things up. So it has those limitations. It's up to us to actually guide it like we do with anything else. So it's just another tool. We treat it as such, and I think we're gonna. That's the biggest thing that I when we first started Alberta was like, okay, it's just another tool. It's gonna make mistakes. We have to figure this out, and that was the biggest thing that changed how we viewed AI from when we first started.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is the problem with AI right now. They call it AI slop. You probably heard that term. I mean, all you have to do is go to your Facebook feed and you see, oh, the flowers look nicer now. But all of a sudden, you look at them and they're all the same. They all have the same little. They're full of icons. Like I had this conversation with Dr. Powell lately about the icons thing. I don't know why. There's an icon for every single sentence
Hmm.
in something generated by AI. Like it's a phone number. You really don't need an icon as to the phone number all the time. But that's the thing, and the swashes and the same font, and that's what I'm saying. If you give in into the whole thing, oh, it's doing the work for me, and you don't give it your voice, then you just start blending in with the rest of the noise. And I could tell you, all you have to do is take a look at go right now, scroll through your Facebook feed, and you'll see every single flower looks like it came out of Canva. I could even recognize which is the AI Canva files and which one was like either ChatGPT or something because they all have, and we found out this the hard way with Rohan, they have a favorite color.
Yes.
And no matter how much we fought it, it will give us a flyer or something in that color.
Claude is
So
blue.
yeah, Claude is blue. ChatGPT likes turquoise or green. And I think the new one is purple. It just makes everything purple. So that's the thing. And you also started to see, like, okay, like this one, example, this dashboard. It's nice, but you could tell it was created by AI. The fonts look the same. So, but it's functional. For some things, it's functional, but for your main organization website, you don't want it to look anything like that because it starts looking. I mean, we are mission-driven organizations. We work with populations. We have to reflect that the humanity in it because once we start using AI for all these different things, that's what happens, and that's the whole idea of this. Like I said, this was not going to be a webinar about giving you just like, oh, let me show you what I can do, with this here and there. No, it's like, here's the tool. This is what you can do. These are the do and don'ts, and then we give you for you to experiment on your own. Because one thing is that you get all excited, they give you this shiny prompt, you put it in and it doesn't work, and it gets you discouraged. Now you have a tool that you could go back and go at your own pace, copy and paste into the thing and tailor it. You start experiencing and you start knowing how to start to work with AI. It's not just like, oh, here's a bunch of prompts and put it in and that's it. No, we gave you the framework of how to communicate with it and how to work it out. And if you ever in doubt, you can tell I'm a Trekkie. just pretend you're Captain Picard and tell it to do something, because that's basically what it is. It's a language model. It was trained on human language. So basically, that's what it is. You talk to it plainly. You give it the parameters. You have to tell it the results first. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I want you to do, and this is how I want you to give it to bring it back to me. It could be in a form of PDF, a website. It could be in a form of anything. You also have to tell it, hey, go to my website and look up and make sure you're following that you have the same colors and my logo is included. So all that would be in subsequent webinars. We will actually have a webinar that we actually will show you how to use the AI on the actual application, so that way you learn that. But this initial webinar was about mainly how to talk to it, and the most important thing, how to keep safe. Because I think that's what's missing with a lot of webinars out there, that they just gave you, you could do, it's wonderful, it does everything for you, but they don't tell you it hallucinates. It's what, and everybody's telling you, oh yeah, buy this because if you don't learn this, it's going to replace you. No, it's not going to replace it. Look at what's happening in the industry out there right now. All these companies that were trying, they use AI as an excuse, basically. You could attest to this, Laura, to get rid of basically the overflow of people from the pandemic and other things that they did, and because the economy is going the way it is, and they blame that on something, so they don't lose points. They don't lose the value of their companies. And this is what happens. They make this thing that is going to take over. It's not. It's just another tool. The only difference between this tool and what happened, let's say, remember in the 80s when they told us that there was going to be no paperwork, computer was going to be no paperwork, and we ended up with mountains of paperwork. Same thing with AI. They told us it was going to replace everyone. It was going to be this amazing tool. It was going to cure cancer. It was going to send us to space, and look at what's happening right now. It can't even sometimes give you the time of day because it gives it wrong. It gives it at a different time that it's supposed to. So that's something that another thing that we wanted to do with the seminar was making sure to calm people down. And that's why I brought Dr. Powell along, because one of the things that I think is missing also is that everybody's talking about this tool and they don't see the additional stress that these things bring. I mean, not only for the people running the organization, the people working the organization, especially now that we're in this climate that, budgets are shrinking, things are happening, and actually our work is becoming more important than ever because now more people need help, not only, in the way that we're doing things, but also we're working with smaller groups, with smaller teams, we're working with a smaller budget, and the work has doubled. And one of the things that AI could do is basically help us become more efficient and actually spend less time on the busy work every day, the busy work of basically, the sending out a couple of emails or answering something that you're asked 20 times a day, like at what time you're open and all that. AI could take care of that for you. But as far as the actual person-to-person communication and talking to your community, that's the part you do. That's the part that you would be free more to do because of a tool like this one. So that's the thing. We wanted to just kind of demystify this magical thing they sold us. And at the end, it's actually our own knowledge they're trying to sell us back. So it's the thing you have to also realize.
Can you go back to the tool that you built, the website?
Oh, this one?
That's
Here.
that's a PDF. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me share it.
We'll talk about some of the fun stuff that we've been so this tool, what we found with using AI is, I believe, did you do that in Claude, Alberto?
Yes, this was Claude.
Right. So you can take a host of documents or create a whole document And let's say you're doing let's say an internal training or a group training. I wouldn't publish this unless you went through it, but you can put together a training-based website based on a document, kind of like this. I'd like it to look like this.
Yes.
Here's all the information. You can go back and instead of trying to put together something and take a whole week, you could probably do this in an hour before you go to lunch. Take your time, review the information. I've found what I can do, and going on the other side of the cool things you can do. Um, what I end up having to do is now there's with AI and with there's a new HIPAA guideline that essentially it's finalized, supposed to be getting published in the Federal Register shortly. But 2026, there's new HIPAA guidelines coming out, and it's
Oh,
radically different
fun.
than, right, it's radically different than what the previous one was. So I said, okay, let me go and get the old ruling or the old guidelines, and let's get it to what the new one is. Now, use these two documents only and give me a full crosswalk. Tell me what's the same, what's different, and um, how this can impact, people who either have not used or followed the HIPAA guidelines before and those that are. And it will go through and say here, and I always ask it to cite the sources, right? So it'll go back and say, in this document this rule, and it'll give me the actual ruling number, and it'll actually go through and say this one's here, this is changing. Now you have to do multi-factor authentication. Now you have to do penetration testing, hardening, all those things. So it basically went through, and instead of me trying to read through I don't know how many pages, it gave me a real good brief and summary that I can then say, okay, here's all the things that's going to be changing. Now, at some point will have to go through and actually read through everything. But I basically built a tool that I can now say, give me all
And
the
here it is.
information. Yeah, so
There,
that's
there's
another
what it
tool.
created.
Yeah. So there's dashboards you can build that can help you get things done faster, such as that. I'm actually studying for a security test now, and I gave it all the information, and it created flashcards. It created a whole study system for me based on that set of flashcards, right? So it's actually working really well. I've got a list of YouTube videos. I check it off. It gives me quizzes. I've got flashcards based on the information that was given about the test. So there is a lot of very interesting tools you can also build to help you either teach others, teach yourself, or in my case, when you've got all this government documentation that you've got to read through, or just in general best practices for IT. So Verizon just came out with a whole new report. I can tell it, hey, Verizon, go through this Verizon report on data breach report, and give me all of the relevant points that I'd like based on these policies or this criteria, and it'll pull it out so I can get a brief summary of what it was, because I don't really want to read the whole report. There's certain things I'm looking for that's relevant, and then I'll reference back to it if I need to. So there's a lot of use cases that can speed things up, and if you don't need to read documentation, or in my case, I'm, you know, trying to, in between everything, trying to get a new security certification. I built a tool. I just said, here's the information, and I've got it on my phone. And when I'm sitting there
And
bored, instead of going to social media, I'm learning.
another great thing that I'm doing now, experimenting, that Rohan does not like it, but I do, is basically any type of book that you love. Let's say you love an author, or you love someone's way of one of your favorite gurus. You could gather all their videos, all the information. You could tell AI to go out there and find such and such person. It will gather all up, bring it to you, and then you basically can query anything. So you're basically talking to the knowledge this person left. So I have my favorite books. It could be a book about anything. And I could say, hey, looking at this type of thing, how can I answer this question in a way like this person would have answered it? Because I love the way they communicate it or something, and it will do it. It basically goes and gives you the rough, kind of put it in the way that person's thoughts. were organized. So you basically have a resource that you could go and get a quote, maybe a quote like of your favorite person, and you say, "Well, I want to say something like this, like be the change that you want to be in the world, but I don't have that talent. Could you just have basically Gandhi tell me how he would say this in that way, and he will go out there and bring it back to you, and you're like, wow, just so it uses their tone, their language. So it's something that they're tools that you can use. And also, if you're studying something, let's say you had something very long, like Rohan said, and you put it, you summarize it, you could tell it to give you, like you said, flashcards. You could tell it to put it at a language level that you understand. Maybe you want to understand dark matter and you or quantum computing and or string theory, and you say like, why are they talking about that? It will put it at any level you want. You could take it from first grade level all the way to PhD professors. So that's one of the good things about the AI right now. I think that some of the misconceptions that people have, oh, AI is going to take over education, blah 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 blah, and it's gonna. I think if you use it as the tool it is, and you teach children, kids especially, that is just a tool. It is amazing that we have every single piece of knowledge at our fingerprints, but yet, as a society, we failed. We're like the most misinformed group of people at the moment in history. Because of that, I guess it's the same thing. We have so much information, it's confusing us. But that's the thing, that if you use it as the tool it is, and you're not afraid of it because you realize what it is, you realize its shortcomings, it will free up a lot of your time. Because one of the things here is not just for you to do this work, getting you to be more efficient at work. No, the other thing is that once you become, when this thing takes over your little tasks that eat your day away, you'll be more free to spend it with your staff, with yourself, and also eventually your work won't follow you home. You have some actual free time, so it works all ways. It's a whole benefit of learning something like this, and just take it for what it is. It's just a tool. It's like a hammer. I mean, people could build a house with a hammer. I mean, I can. I could draw you a house, but I can't build I could build you. I train as an architect. I could draw you a house, but you give me a hammer and you need to get out of the way because I probably hurt a few people. But the thing is that's the thing. That's the thing you have to. If you get anything out of this, is that it's not going to replace you. Okay, it's not. If you don't let it, you could lose your humanity if you let it, if you misuse it, if you just go put it into autopilot and let it do your work. Of course, but if you take the time to basically treat it like what it is, it's just a tool, something that you could prompt it. You could make it sound like you, but it won't be there. It will never get to that level. But it's just making you your first drafts or organizing your thoughts and helping you with research. And even like that, you have to be careful. You have to watch out for those rocks down the river because it has a lot. It has a lot of rocks. But once you learn to avoid those things, it will be a very useful tool, something that will actually change the way you work every day. And it could really propel you to the next level if you could just you have the model of how to work with it. And that's what we're trying to do in these webinars from that we're going to have from, once a month at least. We're going to take a problem that you have, that you're facing in your organization, and basically say, this is how you can make it more efficient. These are the tools that are available. This is what you can do with it. So that way it's something that you could use right away. It will solve a problem for you, and it will basically free you, give you the time to do other things.
So
Now, are there
there's
any questions? Oh,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well,
No, go ahead, Ron.
you had mentioned use how you can kind of use it with authors, right? So
Yes.
actually, I'd even get a chance to send this to you. We were talking how people were using it to bounce ideas off of different, we'll say, personalities, right? So let's say you've got a favorite economist, a favorite historian,
or IT
someone.
manager.
Yeah, so basically, apparently Stanford has been doing kind of a study on this, and they basically said, hey, look, you can assemble a team, in which we've tested. It actually works really well, with like your favorite economist, your favorite author, a group of people that has known works out there, right? So it has that reference already, and you can say, here's what I'm trying to do, and it's basically you can pretend to be at a round table. Now, is it really? No, but using the context of what this person may or may not have said, or from the lens of an economist versus a historian, you may get some interesting responses and insights as far as, here's the idea, here's what we're thinking of doing. Um, and you can put those people, you can tell it, hey, I need a round table of this person, this person, this person, this person, and it will basically build a little round table for you. Apparently, Stanford says it's actually a very effective way of kind of working through some topics with your team or even by yourself. So, it sounds a little crazy, but when you try it, it's one of those use cases at 11, 2 o'clock in the morning, you're, stumped, and hey, let's see what comes out there. And next thing you know, you're down another rabbit hole. And I've been there, I can tell you. But there's apparently
Yeah.
research showing that that's actually a very good use case for it.
Well, I mean, I seen it used in a case study like that, which is salespeople are grabbing all the sales calls, all the cold calling they do, and they grab all the things that the butts that someone could give them when they call them about selling them something, and they make basically they created a client to train it, so it's role play almost. So what happens is that the brand new salesperson comes in, and they put him to the AI, and they pretends he's calling the AI, and the AI will pull from all the questions and waste people hang up the phone on poor salespeople, and they will actually train them how to answer, have an answer for all the questions that the AI will give them. So they are using it for role playing, for training people. Right now, I'm working on helping someone roll it out to basically have a training, do the training, the onboarding of clients, of new employees to come in. So that way they will make, with the Copilot suite, you could actually make onboarding videos and all that. And all is coming out from the actual document, the manual the manual, the employee manual. So basically they're not even doing creating all these things individually. The employee manual is going to be fed to the AI, and the employee manual is going to create the onboarding video through where a Copilot is going to create the paperwork. It's going to grab all the paperwork off the server already that's there, and it's going to make a packet for the employee when they come in. So that way, it frees the HR department to do the other work that they need to do. So, which basically maybe meeting with the employee face to face and telling them more about the other policies that really matter instead of just spending hours with someone just giving them paperwork, which is the part that they could do on their own and self-paced, and they just deal with the face-to-face part, and they free them more time to do that. So that's one of the benefits about this type of technology, that it gives you more time for the face-to-face part, and it frees you from all the busy work that you get. So we're almost done. Any questions anyone has? We're welcome to the questions after this event. What will happen is that you're gonna get an email tomorrow with all the goodies that you saw here, some additional prompts and things that you could try, some case studies of things that we've done. And any questions, you're free. We're offering a half-hour free audit, or any questions that you have. It's on our website. You could call us. So that way you could start we could help you roll this out. Or if you just have a question about, hey, what do you recommend? Or we're having this issue. Like, I know the first issue that I seen come out with all these trainings is that people had put data that they were not supposed to put out there. and, and just because they didn't know, and that's the first thing that I want to make sure that we're all safe, that we know what the limitations of this thing is, and like I said, once you get working with it, it will just get easier and easier, and you will have to prompt it less because you're training it. You're actually tailoring it to yourself, to the way you work, and that's something that I think is missing from a lot of these other trainings and things, that they just give you a prompt and that's about it. Anything you want to add, Dr. Powell or Rohan?
Oh, nope, there's nothing that I've got to add anymore. I think and actually we're coming up right up on time. So I'll leave the floor to Dr. Powell.
Yeah. So I learned a lot, even though Alberto and Rohan has been training me. I'm like the guinea pig, I shouldn't say the guinea pig, the company, because we run a healthcare company here at Powell Mental Health. So I want to thank everyone who was able to join and those that will see the live play again. AI Community Impact webinar. It is so needed. You may not know that you need it right now until some of the changes come down the pipeline as far as employees or budget cuts and things like that. So thank you for all of the information, the rich information that was highlighted here today around how to really make AI effective, how to really make AI safe for organizations such as nonprofit churches, our small business, to make it profitable. But while we still have limited resources, we use AI as a very helpful tool. One thing I want to take away, again, I know that we mentioned nonprofit a lot here, but I want to say that a lot of healthcare providers, I met Alberto in doing projects for one of our healthcare providers throughout Connecticut, and our work continued to grow over the years. But for educators, higher education, for school systems, right? They are putting it out there that they want to come in and do really a quick assessment to see where you are, where there's improvements. And I tell you, I'm able to work with them each day just to make sure that what we're putting out, how we're thinking about things, it's not that AI is efficient, but we want to do it the right way because it could be costly. One thing that I do want to bring up as a takeaway here today, and I'm going to ask Alberto, and Alberto will include that in the package and the takeaway information that he will send. One of the things that's missing, right, is the piece around preventative health, right? AI is a great tool, but it could not replace the human component in each of our companies, no matter how small the company is. We need a human touch to be able to lead AI in the way that really makes it beneficial for our company. And one of my ways is really looking at some of the innovation and how we consider really emotional intelligence or emotional well-being, even for a streamlined, thin team. Or workers that you have, we still need to take care of how we really look and really advocate for their preventative health, right? Increase workloads, our budget cuts, economic uncertainty that we're seeing on every, right? Some of the rules around privacy is going to change, like Rohan says, right? Staffing shortage, all of the constant changes that we have, it does play a role and an impact when we don't take care of or advocate in advance for our employees' well-being. How do we integrate AI and as well as mental health preventative strategies into our day to day to allow our staff to remain to remain present, to remain active, to remain really just resilient, right? So that's something that we're going to include. We do a lot of information such as burnout, mental health first aid, which really teaches you on how to recognize those early signs and symptoms and what to do, how to advocate, just like you advocate for those grants, we want to advocate for your bottom line. Your bottom line, one of the strongest assets that you own is your employees. And then your clients, emotional intelligence, how you integrate with them, how you interact with them, how you influence them. It is a mental, it takes preventative work for us to not go out there and just blow it by the things we say or how we respond to them. And so that's something that I want to lead you and talk about some of the trainings that we're able to do, go into private sectors, we go into government offices, different sectors, higher education, healthcare companies, and we train their employees their staff, their clients, right, on how to really recognize those signs and symptoms, how to really respond, what to do, what to prevent them. And that's something that I really want to share with you as we talk about how to streamline our day-to-day with in artificial intelligence, right? And all of the options that we do have. And so I'm going to give it back to Alberto so he is able to close it off, but I promise I will give that information over to him so that we can continue on to making sure that we're building an all-inclusive, not just AI, but really taking care of your current staff and your clients, as well as those that you're wanting to bring into you want to share that you have a system built up on how to take care of their employees, the human component of it. So for now, I'm going to sign off and give Alberto the mic.
Well, I would like to thank everyone that took part of this seminar. Thank you, webinar. Thank you very much for your time. Also, Dr. Joya Powell, as always. Thank you. Rohan, thank you very much. And like I said, this webinar was not just about giving you prompts and telling you what everybody's telling you out there. No, it's actually making sure that AI is not only rolled out safely, but it's safe for you, your community, and even your family. You can take the things that you're learning here to your home because this is a big deal. And also making sure the mental health aspect, because that's something that is just taking a toll of us, not just the news and the politics and the economy is just and what's going on with this new technology. It's a lot to handle. So I thought that bringing that element, like Dr. Georgia Powell to come here, was very important because it's something that without your health, your mental health especially, you have nothing. So we have to start with that. So thank you again to all, and I hope to see you in upcoming webinars. Like I said, I will send all these goodies your way so you could walk through them at your own pace. Any questions, feel free to contact us. And we'll put out the new webinars coming out, which will those be about actually working with the actual applications now that you have the foundation of how you're going to start working with this. Thank you very much and goodbye.